step, we're going to fold our cover material. And that sounds easy, right? I know you all know how to fold, but I just have a particular thing that I like to show right off the bat. And that is, let's see, I'm going to try to get it a little closer to my camera here. So in bookmaking, I don't care too much about things being perfect, me personally, but I am a little picky about getting started with a nice fold. So what I do is I line up the edges of my paper, and without getting a paper cut, I very, very carefully run my fingers along those two edges and make sure that they match, okay? And then I start, can you still see me, hopefully? I start pressing towards where the fold is going to be. So again, I want to make sure that these two edges stay nice and neat, and then I start pressing into the fold, okay? And that sounds easy. It really depends on your paper. Sometimes if you have a kind of a tough paper, it can be harder than you think to get a neat edge, okay? And that just kind of shows us that our book is going to, you know, kind of hang together when we're done. What a lot of bookmakers use is my little toolkit here. This thing here is called a bone folder. You don't have to go out and buy a bone folder. If you have like the back of a butter knife or even a, you know, a rewards card or something, you can use the edge of a card. You don't want to hurt the paper, you know, we want to be delicate and gently kind of press your fold so you have a nice crease, but not too sharp, okay? So I've done that, all right. And if I'm going too fast for anybody, please, you can unmute and you can ask me to slow down, okay? All right, so we've got that. We are going to also be folding a little stack of paper. Now, I think I have 4 or 5. These are just copy paper, standard copy paper. I like to use a heavier copy paper. I like about 24-pound weight. It's not so flimsy that it will tear or fall apart easily. If you don't have that, no worries, okay? So another word about folding paper, and forgive me for getting technical, but bookmakers, I have read different things about folding paper. Some people say that it is best to fold a stack of paper all at once, okay? And there's a reason for that. It has to do with the fibers of the paper all kind of, you know, getting meshed together. If you have a huge stack of paper, however, your paper can start going all over the place. You know, it gets kind of messy. So what other people do is they fold their pages one by one, and then they slide those pages one inside the other. Is that making sense? Is that kind of making sense? So you have the option. You can tap them together and kind of hold onto an end, try to make sure that you still have an edge that sticks together, okay? And if you have any on hand, let me reach for my clips. I have a little bookmaking kit here, which includes, I love these binder clips, but if you have a clothespin or a big paper clip, something like that works. And if you don't, just use your hands, okay? So I like to hold the edge together for a minute, just so it's not sliding. And now I'm gonna try to fold together, okay? And if it doesn't work, it won't work too well. Yeah, undo that. So let me know, give me a nod or something when your paper is all folded. See if I can get mine fairly neat. And again, if you have anything like a bone folder or something, thank you, you can smooth your paper down, okay? So voila, all right. So I'll give you a minute to get that far. And at this point, you might, if you have one nearby, you might want to grab a ruler and a pencil. I see a lot of people looking ready to go. If you're not, no worries. We'll catch you up. Okay. Pretty good to go? Okay. So first, I want to just show you what the cuts are actually going to look like, and then I'll tell you how they're going to function. So I have this paper sort of kicking around. It's already been cut. So I want to show you what we're going to be doing. Can you see that on your screen? Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a little triangular cut off the edge of each end. And then we're going to be making a little notch in the center, in the very center. If it's not in the very center, no worries. Okay, so for the triangular cut, you can do it your own way. If you want to do it by eye, you're welcome to do that. Okay, but if you'd like to measure it, I don't remember. I think I went in roughly ½ an inch. So let's see if I can show you that. So I was at my corner. See if I can do it on this one. Okay. So if you can see that, measure up about ½ an inch, make a little notch, a little mark with my pencil. And then on the spine edge is the folded edge. You can also measure in ½ inch, and this does not have to be perfect. Measure in another ½ inch and make a little notch. Okay, I'm going to make these darker so you can see what I'm doing here. So I've got something, can you see those marks on mine? Sorta. Okay, so really you're just going to be connecting the dots, connecting those little marks that you just made. And if you want to further draw a line to connect them so they're straight, that's totally up to you. So something like that, you can see that. Okay, you're actually going to do the very same thing on the bottom of the book. So one notch at the top, one notch, same kind of notch at the bottom. Okay, and again, it's going, when you've cut it, it's going to end up looking something like this. We're just on the top and bottom cuts first, okay? If you don't care about measuring these and making them perfect, no worries at all. Our main thing is that the notches are going to be important in holding the book together, so we do need them, okay? So I'm going to chop my first notch off. There I go. Okay. My paper went flying. If I don't want to measure all over, I could probably flip this and trace it, you know, and just do the same thing on the opposite end. Totally up to you. Okay. Anybody have questions about this part? And you can, if you have a question, feel free to turn your microphone on and ask away. I'm going to notch my other end, ½ inch across the spine and a ½ inch down. Let's see, where am I? There I go. And a line in between. So you're making like a little triangular cut. All right. So there's my ends. And I'm looking around, I can't see everyone in my screen. I don't think I can, maybe I can, but if I'm missing you, just look up, give me a nod or whatever when you're ready to move on, and we'll go with a consensus. Thanks. Okay, thank you. All right. Gonna give us one more moment here. Okay, I see a lot of you looking up and looking pretty much ready. Okay, so now what we need to do, well, we haven't done our middle notch. Let's do that, okay? So for the middle, again, this is really up to you how precise you want to be. I'm going to tell you what this middle notch is for, by showing you something. Let me loosen up a piece of my cord here. So we are eventually, pretty soon, going to be passing a cord that is going to hold our books together. And that cord is going to go around, but it also is going to go through the middle. So let's say I have a fairly skinny piece of cord here. The middle notch, this cord is going to go through the middle notch twice. So your middle notch doesn't have to be gigantic. It just has to fit 2 widths of your cord. Does that make sense? And you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So when you go to make your middle notch, if you want, you can measure the center of the book and make a little mark, or you can just eyeball it, totally up to you. You decide how you want to do that. You're going to be cutting a little triangle, okay, that spans the middle of your book. I'm going to do this one by eye, and I'm just going to draw it in so you can see. See if I can do that kind of dark so you can see. Can you see what I just drew there? That little notch? I'll hold it up to the camera. So it's going to be something like that. If it's too big, your cord is going to kind of flap around. If it's too small, you'll have to cut it open a little further. No harm done. But what I want to show you is that when you open this up, this little notch, it's going to get doubled in size. Okay, so it will be bigger than you think it is. That makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out my notch. Cut out that little piece of paper there. I can hold this one up if that helps you see it a little better. Okay. So if you're looking at me, I'm assuming that you're probably ready to move on. Is that right? Okay. So I'm going to slow me down if you need to. Okay. So next step, we have to do the same thing to our pad of paper here. Okay. Because it won't hold together if I have the paper loose. The cover won't make a difference. So what I have to do is I'm going to set my paper inside. And if you can see, my paper is just a little bit smaller. Let me do it on the opposite side so you can see that better. So my paper is just a tiny bit smaller than my book cover. No worries. But I want to line it up, okay, because I'm going to use my cover as a little cutting guide for my inner paper. That makes sense? Good. So, for example, this, I'm lining my paper up. I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw a line where my notches are. Oops. Can you still see me, I hope? Going to draw another line for my middle notch. Okay. And now I have the markings on my book for where I'm going to cut. So I use the cover as my guide. Okay. And I want to make sure that I have this nice and centered inside where I want it. Okay. Any questions coming up? Everybody good? Okay. When you feel ready, you have markings on your pad. If you think you can keep your paper pretty steady, go ahead. If you think you can chop the corners and the notch all at once, you can do it all at the same time. This is a time when I, again, might use a clip on the end just to make sure that my papers don't go sliding around while I'm cutting. You really want them to all be in the same place as much as possible, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to chop. Let's see if I can chop. Okay, my laptop is going to get full of little little pieces of paper here. Chop over here. And I'm going to chop the middle. Okay. And so my inner paper is going to look pretty much like my outer paper. Now, if any of this happens to be giving you any trouble at all, what I do sometimes when I'm learning a new form is I just grab some scrap paper, paper from the mail, from the recycle bin, and I practice without doing it on, you know, a fancy cover, but totally up to you. Okay, so give me a nod or something if you have cut your cover notches and your inner paper. Okay, I see thumbs up, perfect. Okay, so I am now going to try to line this up correctly. See if I didn't flip things too much. So here I am. I've got my inner paper inside, okay? And I think what I want to do, I'm going to unclip my papers for the moment. I'm going to show you the next step involves putting some kind of cord. Does everybody have something to lace with? Everybody? Okay. If you do, great. And if by chance you don't, you can just watch. And, you know, this will be recorded, I think, and you can catch up. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to be opening up my whole book, cover, inner pages, to the very center. Okay, right to the center. So I have a sheet of paper on the top and my holes should ideally be lined up, okay, like that. And now I'm going to measure a piece of whatever I have, yarn, string, cord, about, I like to give it about 3 or 4 times. I go with a little extra length. I'm going to go with maybe 4 times as long as the width of the book when it's all open. So 1, 2, just guesstimate here without making a big mess of it. Okay, and if you ever did any sewing, I have these big pinking shears. If you have those, they're good for chopping things so that the ends don't get so, you know, frayed. But if you don't, no worries, regular scissor will do. Okay, all right. Does everybody have some cord handy at this point? Good. Okay. So your book is open to the center. Okay, let's see if I can hold this up so you can see it. And your pages are all lined up. Take the end of your cord. I'm right-handed, so I hold my book in my left hand. Right hand is on the cord. I'm going to pass the cord through the center notch. I'm going through all the pages. And I'm going right to the outside of the book, right through the cover. I'll get this junk out of the way so you can see better. Okay, we don't need this anymore. All right. Give me a nod when you have something like that. And you can leave, you know, a good sized tail, I'll call it a tail, hanging out there, okay? We're going to be using that in just a minute. This is the part I think is fun. And we are actually almost done with this book, believe it or not. So I have something that looks like this. We've gone through the middle. Now you can hang on to your cord or you could tape it down if you have masking tape, but you may not need to. You are going to take your cord, go to the bottom of your book and bring that cord down to the bottom. Okay. And now you're going to let the cord sit on the bottom notch there. And then you're going to go back around the outside of the book. Okay. You can see that outside of the book. So center to the bottom, go all the way to the outside. You'll have like, it looks like a big line of ribbon on the outside. Okay. And now grab the other end of your cord and pass it right back through the middle where you cut that notch. And if it doesn't go through easily, you may have to backtrack and open your notch up just a tiny bit, okay? So here I am. I don't know if you can see that. I'm about to pull the second end together. And I'm pulling gently. I don't want to pull too tightly. And while I do that, the way I do it, I hold these two ends together because I want them kind of even. And it's like I'm making a big kind of a loop here, like this. It's getting tighter, tighter, a little tighter, and soon enough, it's going to be holding that nice and flat like that. Okay. Tell me if that is making sense. Don't pull too tightly, just gently. Okay. And I'm losing my grip on this. Okay. So here I have the two tails. They're not perfectly lined up, but they're kind of there. Okay. Here's the inside. Here's the outside. Here's the outside. Okay. We're almost done. Okay. Everybody with me so far? You need a minute. Nod if you're with me. Okay, good. Okay, so here I am. So here's the tricky part. Not so tricky, really. So here's this spine, the cord or ribbon that is on the spine, and you have these two tails. So you want one tail on the back cover, okay, and you want one tail to go around. So what I'm going to be doing is tying this in. And I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Oops, what happened there? I lost you for a minute. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Got you back on my PowerPoint screen, or I did anyway. Okay. Anybody having trouble with that? So if you look at the tails, they're spread out over the back and the front cover. Okay. And this long string is lying on top of them right now. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we are going to make a very gentle knot. Okay. And I say gentle, now I have to adjust mine a little bit more tightly. Mine is kind of loose, so I'm not there yet. I don't want to make a really tight knot until I'm sure that I have things where I want them. Okay, and when I do, I'm just going to secure this cord in here with a very simple knot. Okay, this little package. Okay, and tell me if I see some people working. Anybody have any question about this part? This is easy to pull apart and do all over again. Okay, so open your book so that you're at the very center of the book, okay? And line up, especially the center notch, because we're going to be starting there, okay? Grab one end of your cord, and with everything perfectly lined up, don't lose any pages, pass the cord from the inside of the book right through that center notch. Okay, you with me? Okay, push it out, and you're going to have a tail of cord. I've got a little tail here, and I'm going to keep growing that. I'm pulling it, so I've got a pretty good length of cord. So it started on the inside, passes through to the outside. So that's kind of step one of lacing this up, okay? Give me a nod when I should keep going. Good, okay. So now, hold on to your cord on the inside of the book, pull it down gently to the bottom, okay? Now you have a notch at the bottom, and just feed the cord right into that notch. Okay, and now wrap it around the outside of your cover. So it goes from inside to outside. Okay, wrap, keep wrapping. So when you wrap it, you've got this so far. Okay, and now bring the cord down You have one end on the outside and you have an end that's still on the inside. That making sense? Okay. Wrap this down and go back through the center, right where you started. Go right back through the same hole that you started in, okay? Now my cord is once again coming through the hole, okay? Okay, I'm pulling it gently. Now when I get to the outside, what I do is I hang on to both ends. Now both ends are on the outside. I like to keep them kind of even. It's like sewing in a way. I'm pulling them up gently so that this will all hold together, okay? And when you have that much done, you're gonna have this, okay? The two ends that you push through the book are gonna be, one is gonna go across the back cover, one's gonna grow across the front cover, okay? And the long cord that runs along the spine of the book is gonna be sitting on top, okay? And if you have any trouble with this, we don't want to take too much time on one step. I don't I want us to be able to hopefully do a little bit more. So I'm always available to coach you through this, or you could watch the video that we make. So are we good with this step pretty much? Give me a nod if you're good with this step. Okay, a lot of people are. So again, the last step is take your two ends and just make a big knot, okay? You might make another knot, but for now, you have something, a knot, and your book is actually a real book. I mean, it holds together, and you have all this cord. Why so much? Well, you might want to wrap it around a few times, you know, if it's a journal or something. You might want to tie it in a fancy way. You might want to, you could string beads on this cord, but that gets a little tough. I'm going to show you one that I made recently. You might have seen the picture, the same idea. Let's see if I can get that in the camera. So I don't know if you can see in this light, but I used yarn, this curly yarn on mine. I wanted to do a little bit of beading. I first tried beading all the way along the spine, but it got a little complicated. It was kind of flopping around and it was kind of in my way. So I decided to string some beads on a separate cord. This is like a very thin, might not even be able to see it, but anyway. So there you go, okay. I just strung some beads on a separate cord and I just tied it on to my yarn. Okay, here's another one, very, very simple. I tied on a little piece of fabric trim on the side. This one, I've got to brag about my great discovery. So this is a piece of scrapbook paper. I don't know if any of you around in Monterey know of the store Tuesday Morning. They just closed in my neighborhood, but they used to have pads of the most beautiful scrapbook paper. Really, really cheap. So anyway, this is scrapbook paper. And then I discovered, I'm a scavenger and a recycler. So I discovered that Kleenex boxes have some really nice patterns. So I discovered that this particular Kleenex box, this cardboard stuff here, kind of went with the scrapbook paper. So I just thought I would make a new design out of that. So again, scavenge from your recycle bin whenever you can. All right. Okay. So does that give you a pretty good, here's one more that never got too far, but it's just a simple one. Does that give you a pretty good idea of how to put this particular book together? Yes? Anybody need another moment to work on it? No? Okay. All right. Anybody need a breather? Sip of tea or coffee? I don't know about where you are, but in my apartment, it is super hot today. It's really warm. So I'm going to fan myself. And I'm going to just take a moment and I'm going to shift out some supplies and get ready for our next book form. So give me just a moment here. Let's see what we got. All right. Give me a nod when you are ready to go. Nod, good? Okay. So let's see. So the next kind of book that we are going to work on is, what did I call this book? A rubber band and stick book. Okay, did you see that in the packet? I don't know if Francesca is still with us, but I think I want to say it's on page 5 of the packet, but don't quote me on that. Okay, I'm going to put this back on my screen there, cover up my keys. Okay, so I think this is a really cool kind of book. I'm intrigued by it. I'm going to start out by showing you, I think this might be in the packet, but this is one that I made recently. Why a stick and elastic? Because that's what holds it together. Here's the stick, and the elastic is actually a rubber band threaded through 2 holes in the book, goes from the back, and it creates little loops. And don't worry, I'll show you all of this stuff, but I want to just show you in process so you get the idea. So the rubber band, pardon me, is going to end up getting pushed through the back hole, the back cover. It's going to form a little loop. I just left this one with no stick to be able to show you. So you just leave a little tiny place, and you're going to push a stick in there. And then you're going to spread that rubber band along the back of the book, push the rubber band again through the bottom hole. So only 2 holes, okay, 2 holes, and then another loop, and your stick will go in between. And that makes a secure holder for this kind of book. And to prove it, I made a little tiny one the other day. I just stuck scrap paper in here, but everything, I don't know if you can see, well, this one actually I made with a pipe cleaner, not a rubber band. So you can do it different ways, but same concept, okay? All right, so I'm going to take you through the steps of all of that. I set a book up to show you, okay? So I have my materials ready. So what you need for this, again, is some kind of a cover paper. And once again, I have some scrapbook paper, but whatever you have, your cover paper for these books, you just want to make sure that it's durable enough. You know, books get a lot of wear and tear. So I wouldn't necessarily use copy paper for the cover, but whatever, if you have cardstock or whatever you have around that you like, and you can decorate to your heart's content later on, okay? What I did on this one and also on this one that I showed you a minute ago is I cut a separate band of paper just because I like the look of it, gives it a kind of polished look. So that's like a separate band of paper. I just folded it up, and I'm making kind of a, you know, a fancy spine. So I've clipped mine together to get ready, okay? And I'm going to take it apart now. Let me untape all this stuff. My stick is ready. I want to say a word about sticks. Don't worry if you don't have a fancy stick. Here are some sticks I grabbed. This is a skewer from the grocery store. This is from my garden, a broken off piece of, you know, a plant support. I have this chopstick that a dear friend sent me. You could use a chopstick, that's fun. What about a paintbrush? That would make a perfect stick. So even a colored pencil. So the sky is kind of the limit. You don't want a stick that is really, really thick. Like I wouldn't try to put a ruler or something really wide in there, but anyway, something stick-like, okay? You get the idea. Okay, and rubber bands should be, you know, strong, because the book will get some wear and tear. Not too thick, not too thin if you can help it, okay? You will also benefit from having a good old-fashioned hole punch. If you have one, that will make this book much easier to put together. If you don't have a hole punch on hand, you could probably improvise, maybe with a nail, maybe like, I don't know what you call it, a Phillips screwdriver, not the flat screwdriver, but the one with the rounded point. So use what you have. You don't have to go out and buy, you know, a bunch of stuff, but this does definitely come in handy, okay? So saying all that, I'm going to get some of this stuff out of the way if I can. Give me just a moment. All right. So my band, I just cut this out of, I don't know, cardstock or something, maybe 3 or 4 inches wide. I folded it down the middle. Okay, nice fold. Okay, and I'm ready to go. So step 1, just like we did with our first book, take your cover paper, line up the 2 edges. I run my fingers along the edges to make sure they're lined up nicely without getting a paper cut, and then start pushing that so you're going towards the fold, and then start giving yourself a nice crease. If you don't have a bone folder, like I said, you can improvise. Here's a ruler. I'm going to push down with a ruler. That's handy. Okay, so cover. Ta-da. All right, so that's step 1. Step 2, a packet of paper. Up to you how many you do. I should just say this. Your cover, in this particular book, your cover gets folded. If you remember our last book, we folded the inner pages. This one is different. This one has individual pages. So single pages, no folding of the pages, just page by page. And I cut down a paper grocery bag, I believe in recycling whenever possible, and I also love the paper. So that's what I did. Grab whatever you have on hand, make them, you know, more or less the same size, and I clip them together again, so I know that they're all lined up pretty neatly. So next step, hold up your rubber band, okay? And what I do is I use the rubber band itself to measure where my holes are gonna go. So I'll hold this up again. So here's what we're gonna be aiming for, okay? You want your rubber band to stretch as long as it can stretch, but not be like super stretched out, because we don't want to keep stressing it, right? So just your rubber band in a relaxed position, and then the holes that you mark, you're not going to be punching holes so that they're beyond the rubber band. You want it to be like a little bit in, like about that far in, because remember, we want to have a loop coming through, so we need room. So I lay the rubber band down on my cover, okay? You can see what I mean. And then maybe you can grab a pencil and just put a little mark for yourself so that the rubber band, again, has like a little bit of play on the end. It might be like, I don't know, let's see, maybe 1/4 of an inch or so. I have a couple rulers here. Grab this one. Let's go with, you know, at least 1/4 of an inch. Okay, lay your rubber band down. If you want to be fancy and get this right in the middle of your cover, you can measure and find the midpoint. If you're not so concerned about the middle, just do it by eye, up to you. Okay, here's something important. When you go to mark the holes that we're going to be punching here, you don't want the holes right on the edge. I call this is called the spine, where your book cover is folded. We don't want the holes right on that edge. We want them in a little bit, if that makes sense. So it's not going to tear apart when you're turning things. So I think I go in, let's measure again, you know, about between 1/4 and 1/2 of an inch in. You can just put a little pencil dot, okay? And then I'm going to do it on here. Actually, I have a brand new book. Give me one moment. I'm going to eyeball this one. And if you can't see what you're doing on the cover, because you have a very, you know, decorative cover, if the other side of your cover, like this is white, I can see better. I just fold my cover inside out, make sure that the spine is here, and I'm going to lay my rubber band down. I'm guesstimating the middle, and I'm guesstimating how far in it's going to go, if you can see that. And then I'm just going to put a little marker here for myself. Okay. The main thing is that it's going to be stable enough to hold your stick in. That's really the critical job that the rubber band plays. So like if you have a rubber band that's super long, you could stretch it almost to the ends of the book here, right? You could stretch it like way up here and way up here. If it's too short, I think it would be less stable, is my guess. But if that happens, you know, you can always try a sample book and a sample rubber band. I think I recycle everything. These are probably from produce. I think this is like 3 or 4 inches long, I'm guessing. Yeah, it's like 3.5, 3 3¼ long, and that's a pretty strong rubber band. So that's what I usually go with. Does that kind of answer your question? Yes, hopefully.
Sorry, looking for a rubber band.
Okay. Is everybody with me? I know I'm talking a whole lot. Everybody with me? Okay. And apologies for so much talking, but it kind of requires that. So have we all gotten to the point where we made some little marks on our cover? I did mine in 2 different places. I'm going to fix that up. I want them to be in the same place. Might even use a ruler so that they're lined up. Okay, so I have a crookedy line here, but anyway, my rubber band goes to about there, and I'm just gonna punch away. Where's my hole punch? So I start with the cover all by itself. Hopefully I don't mess this up. I'm gonna punch away. If my hole punch will cooperate with me. Today it's not working too well. And here's my first hole. Okay, I ignored the line, but anyway, you'll see. Get that cleaned out. Okay, I'm gonna go punch my next hole, roughly there. Line that up a little bit more. You can do the very same thing while we're working together. Okay, hole 2 coming up. This one is not really centered, but I don't care. No big deal. Okay, so now I've got this, something like that. Again, imperfection is my strength here. Okay, and as you can probably see, front and back cover, our holes are now doubled. Okay. Give me a nod when you've gotten that far. Okay, good. I see 2. Going for 3. Good, 3. All right. When you're ready, fold it back up. Okay. And when you are ready, take your stack of paper and make sure that at least one side of these pages is all aligned right in a nice straight line. So they all match, at least on one side. Now, for me, I have the clipped side is kind of raggedy. It's not, they're not all lined up. I don't really care. If you do, you can, you know, trim them down, make them perfect. I want to make sure that the packet of pages that I'm about to put in here will fit in the cover and that I can see where the holes are going to go. Okay. So I'm showing you the inside view. Okay. I've clipped them together. I've pushed my papers right against the folded edge, close up my cover. Okay, and now I'm gonna, again, like we did on the last book, I'm gonna grab a pencil and use the holes punched in my cover to mark where the holes in the pages will go. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm just going right through the hole onto page 1. Okay, and here's my page 1, and I have little holes. Now, if you notice that these holes are still, for some reason, too close to the edge, you can move them out just a little. It's kind of hard to punch a whole stack of paper all at once. I know my regular old paper punch will not do that. I have a hand punch, you know, a 2-hole punch and a 3-hole punch, but I'm not using it today. So I may have to do these like 2 at a time, tap them together and punch 2 at a time. I wouldn't do, yes,
Hi, it's Kara. I was wondering, I missed the part where you did this, on the page. How did you do that math? To be right?
The math to get, I can't see, are you holding something up, Kara? Stack of paper.
Yeah.
Okay. Pretend you don't see that first one. Okay, these are already punched.
Okay.
But, so I'm tapping them together so that at least one side, this is going to go into the spine of the book, right? The side that is
Okay.
nice and neat all together. I grab my cover. I've already punched the holes in the cover, right? I only punched one time. Okay.
Yep.
When I open it up,
I saw that.
you got that part. So now grab your paper, stick it in there. Now, if your paper is smaller, like mine is, see, mine is not as tall. So you have to decide where you want it. Do you want it way at the top, or do you want to leave a nice little margin all around? Can you see that? So I have a little margin at the top and the bottom. Anyway, however you decide to do it, just make sure that they're stable, okay? Right flush against the spine. If you can't see what you're doing, you can open your book up and do it on a side that you can, you know, see better, but it can get a little confusing, like where is the spine? But anyway, what I do from that point, I don't know if a marker would work better, but I lay this down. The holes that I punched in the cover are now my model or my, you know, template for where I'm gonna draw. Okay, can you see that? I'm drawing right through the cover holes into the pages. You know what I totally forgot to mention? I'm so sorry. Here's what I do sometimes when this is like beyond, you know, what I can figure out. I actually grab, this is like from a cracker box or something. I grab a piece of cardboard. I should have said this a long time ago. I make a little measuring template out of cardboard, and like I might, you know, lay my rubber band on a piece of cardboard and measure the holes on here, and then I can use it for everything, like the cover, the inner papers. You see what I mean? Okay. It's just a little trick. They have fancy ones, you know, people who make professional books have a real one of these that, you know, but I make them out of cardboard boxes. So okay, so are you good with that part, the where you draw the holes?
Yeah. Can I ask another question?
Sure.
If you were going to make your book thicker and have more inserts, would you cut the spine like down and back?
Yeah, for this particular kind of book, I probably wouldn't make a separate spine. That's a great question. I think this kind is more meant to be almost like a little pamphlet, you know.
Okay.
It doesn't really have a formal spine, like a different piece for a spine. Not the way I have learned to make it. But you can get, I don't know, you might be able to get, like if you have the patience to punch them individually, or you have a big heavy duty hole punch, you might be able to get like 20 pages. And then if you have front and back, that gives you a hefty book, you know. But yeah, that's a good question. We are going to get to a book with a spine, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to keep going if that's okay. So I'm not going to punch all my pages because I want to show you the next step. I'm just going to go like one more, maybe one or two more, because I want to make sure to, excuse me, show you the actual construction so we can hook this up. Okay, so let's just, so again, you can use the preceding page, like you punched one, you can draw through that hole and make another hole. Oh no, I lost you, hold on. I'm leaning on my computer, hold on. Uh-oh, where am I? Help. Help. Zoom meeting. Okay, sorry, I'm leaning on my laptop keys, so I X'd out for just a minute. Okay, here we go. So does everybody have at least a couple of pages with holes punched out by now? Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to do 3 and then I'm going to stop so we can start putting this together. All right, so I'm just going to go with a stack of 3 for now. All right, here's the cool part. This is a tiny bit tricky, but not too bad. Okay, tap your pages together so the holes are all lined up. Put them inside your cover. Again, so everything, oh, mine aren't really lined up. I don't know what happened. Something got reversed maybe, not sure. I was working in haste, so let's see. Give me one moment, and if not, I'll take my other book apart. Okay, good enough. Actually, I think I'm going to work with this book because this is already assembled. Okay, so I'm going to undo the one I have, okay, and show you how I finagled all this stuff together. Okay, so let's say you have no rubber band in play yet. Okay, grab your rubber band, okay, and you need both sides of the rubber band. Okay, you might want to have another person help you with this step, but you can do it by yourself. Okay, so if you have a thick rubber band, it can be a little challenging. You want to squish it together on the end the best you can. Okay, and figure out which is the back of your book. And I go through the top hole first. I don't know that it really matters. Okay, I'm just going to call this the back, and start squishing your rubber band and pushing it through. Now, ideally, your pages are all lined up with your cover. So if they are, you can go through everything at once. If your pages have slipped away from you, you might have to, you know, thread the rubber band through your individual pages, but ideally, you do it all at once. Can you see what I'm doing here? It looks something like that. Okay, so give it a good push. This can take a couple of tries, but it's doable. So it looks something like that right now. Okay, give me, when you're ready, give me a nod. Thank you. I see a nod from Story. Hey, Story. Anybody need extra time? Good? Okay. So if we have gotten this far, we're doing well, okay? I think this is kind of the hardest part. So now grab your stick, and we're going to just get our stick part started, okay? So grab your stick. So the small part of the loop is on the front cover. That's important to know. Like if your front and your back look different for some reason, okay? Just take that stick and push it through the loop. All you got to do for now. Just push it through, leave it flexible, okay? Going to look something like that. So the main part of your rubber band is dangling here from the back cover of your book. I think it's kind of fun. All right, once you've done that, so again, we're like this, we have a loop on the front, we've started putting our stick through. The stick is just gonna be like a placeholder for a moment, okay? So pull the rubber band so it's a little tighter. I'm pulling from the back gently, just getting my loop a little bit smaller, but not too tight yet. And now, as evenly as I can, I want to bring the rubber band down. This is like my stitching thing. It's like, you know, this is what I'm using to stitch the book together, basically. So again, You may have to stretch it just a little bit. You're gonna pinch the ends again, and this gets a little harder because now you have some resistance here, okay? I don't want to do it on top of my computer keys, but so basically, again, we're making a kind of a long stitch on the back, squishing the rubber band together again, pushing it through all the holes, the back cover, all the pages, and right out to the front. I managed to do it on my first try. I'm proud of myself. Sometimes I have to do it a couple of times, okay? So it looks like that. I'm holding on to my loop for dear life so it doesn't slide back through. Okay. Tell me when you have that much done. Good? Okay, good. It wasn't so bad, right? Now, oops. Now wiggle your stick and just find out where you need to wiggle it so you can slide your stick through the remaining loop. And that'll just take a little bit of, wiggling and so on. Wiggle, I'm wiggling, and just work it slowly and gently. Get your stick centered in there. I see Sue has got it. Yay. Awesome. Anybody else want to hold theirs up? Is that Stephanie? You two are all set? Excellent. Cool. All right, looks like we're really getting there. This is the essence of the whatever I call this, rubber band and stick book. Sometimes I call it a stick and loop, call it what you will, okay? All right, I'm gonna leave that on the screen for just a moment. Anybody have any questions up to here? Good, okay. So this is the essence of the stick and loop book. Again, I held up a few of these. Now this one got embellished, I'll call it that. I added beads. This is just a pipe cleaner, from the craft section at CVS or whatever you have in your stash or something like that, if you want beads. I've got to talk about this lovely stuff on my cover. Not the fancy feathers. Somebody gave me an old antique kind of hat. So that's where these feathers came from. But this is corrugated cardboard. I took not cereal box cardboard, but like a cardboard box. And I don't think I have a piece handy. I'm looking around. Nah, forget it. Anyway, if you look at a cardboard box and you start peeling, there's like a thin layer of paper on the top. And if you start peeling away at it, this ridged surface appears. And I love corrugated cardboard. As you can see, I made this book with little ripped up pieces of it. It's just so, feels good under your fingers. So anyway, is it okay if I keep talking a little more? Because I want to show you something else. Now I started with a harder version of using a rubber band. So that was the more challenging one. But let's just say you don't have a lot of time and you want to make like a super fast book. Look at this. Okay, so this was I confess that my husband and I used to go to Coco's, a restaurant around here, to get pie. This is a Coco's pie box, nice cardboard though. This is 2 pieces of a pie box held together with a piece of, I don't know, mailing tape, this brown tape here. This thing here, if you remember those old, what do you call them, pot holder kits? I don't know if anybody ever used to see those, you get a whole bag of these fabric loops. Another thing that I have learned that you can use if you get the size just right, this is a headband, just an elastic headband. So you have to kind of size it to your book. Like this would be it might fit this book. Basically, this was taped together 2 pieces of cardboard, a loop of some kind, and a big pad of paper. That is it, folks. The paper, this is like, I don't know, 8.5 by 14 or whatever, but you could make it any size. This literally slides in and out, which I think is so cool because it's like an instant book. Maybe you're going sketching or you're going whatever you're doing and you need something to write in. Bingo. You can make it very simple like this, or I have made them, where's my other book? I'm going to show you quickly. This one, I had an old painting, was just messing around with paint, and I turned this into, I don't know if any of you ever covered your school books with a folded over book cover, you know, from a paper bag or something. So I folded it the same way. I think I gave you a link to a tutorial in that resource packet. It's just a folded up, you know, piece of paper, and I made a cover for the exact same kind of book. So it looks a little more polished. And then I took some of these little paper fasteners. This is from an ID badge that I had lying around, and I just, you know, put the badge in there and took a few little treasures from my drawer of junk, and bingo, you have, you know, a whole new book that looks a little more like a real book, not like a cardboard box with paper stuffed in it. Okay, so here's another one. That's a mini. Again, I covered, same idea. This was also held with a loop. These are little beads rolled from paper, actually. They're kind of falling apart. It's an old book, but paper beads, fancy paper. And then inside, I took a mailing envelope and cut it down, I think. Glued that in with a little fancy paper. And again, you know, very, very quick book. Very easy to make. And, you know, the sky's the limit again with these. So here's one more. On this one, I think I cut this edge. I think it's just paper. I think it's cardstock. You know, just kind of scallop the edge, some magazine words, a fancy paper napkin. This is fabric, little squares of fabric glued on. So the reason I'm not promoting my own quick books, but what I want to show you by showing you these examples is that you really don't need to invest in tons of expensive papers and fancy supplies. You can really often go with what's in your, you know, your closet, your cabinet, etc. So, okay. Any questions up to now? Good. You want to give me a no if you have no questions? No, no, okay. I have to learn Zoom language. I guess that means no. It doesn't mean you hate the workshop, right? Okay, give me just a moment. I'm gonna transition. If you need a breather at any time, if you need to dart out, I will understand. I'm gonna get reorganized here for just a moment and get ready for, anybody, let's see, I have my phone here. Let's see how we're doing for time. 3:32. So are we supposed to be finished? Ooh, okay. I better say this now because I'm not very good at keeping time. So I don't want to apologize for taking a long time because I want to make sure that we take enough time. But I tried to time our workshop so that we would be able to make several kinds of books. And it looks to me, if I'm correct, that we've actually gotten to the end. I think it was supposed to be 2 to 3:30. I see a note, that's funny. Some kind of long strip of paper. And if you don't have one long strip of paper, we can cut 2 papers and attach them together. So while I get ready, you can get ready too. All right. Nope. No. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna keep going, as I said, with our accordion book. Okay. And Give me a nod or something if you're familiar with accordion books. Some people call them concertinas. Okay. I love accordion books. I'm a huge fan because they are so flexible. They can be adapted in so many ways. So like I said, for this book, you're going to need some kind of a long strip of paper or one or more long strips of paper. If you want to make a hard cover for your accordion book, you need, sorry, I'm fishing around with my supplies here. You need some kind of cover material. It could be just a tiny bit bigger, not much, than your pages. So I'll give you an example here. Here's my little cardboard. I have things kind of measured already, so I would be ready for you. So I wanted to show you how to make a cover. So I have my cardboard, and I have a piece of fancy paper that is about an inch larger than my cardboard on all sides. So an inch on each side and an inch on each end larger than this cardboard, okay? You will likely need some glue for this project. Whatever you have. I go a little against the grain. I'm not a big fan of glue sticks, but some people love them. So I use wet glue, even though it's not always practical. So I'm going to get out my good old fashioned Elmer's. Let's hope the bottle is still open. Yay. Okay. All right. That and what else do I need? Minute.
A quick question about connecting pieces of paper. So I was planning on using the fold of a paper bag. Like that, it kind of makes an accordion. And I was going to connect two of them together. If I use tape, it's going to be hard to write on later. Do you have any tips? Like, would you recommend gluing the two folds together, or?
Actually, I was about to show you that. So I have a couple strategies. Now, were you planning to make that the tall way? Is that what you had in mind?
That is how I cut it. I haven't sized it. I was actually going to use this for my cover, so I was going to cut it down a little.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me show you what I've got, and then if you still have questions, let's see if I can address them as we go along. Okay. So first, I don't want to deal with the cover, this hardcover just yet. I want to get on to the basics of folding the paper. Some of you probably know this already, and if you don't, if you do know it, no harm done. We'll go quickly with this. Okay. So here's my strip of paper. Okay. This is like a 12 by 18. I use a lot of drawing paper in my art classes, so I love this paper. It's kind of a nice weight. You don't want a really flappy, flimsy paper for an accordion book, and I'll show you why. Because accordion books generally stand up. When we display them, I'm going to show you just a few really quick samples. This one has nothing written on the inside, but they are kind of meant to be, I don't know if you can see that, but they're kind of meant to be seen standing up. You can absolutely close them up, and they're meant to do that as well. But if your paper, especially if you don't have a hardcover and your paper is like copy paper, would not be very sturdy. But I think paper bag paper should probably be okay. All right. And I have a bunch more to show you, but let's get back to the folding. So I got a jump start on this. So here's my long paper. First step, make sure you have it the horizontal way. Now, if you have a very, very tall paper, one thing you could do is double it. If you don't want a super tall book, you can double your paper. So you have like a 2-layer book, if that makes sense. I don't want to, let me see if I can grab a, I'll just use a little example here. So let's pretend that that is my horizontal piece of paper. If I say this is too tall, I could fold it in half. Of course, your book is going to get shorter, but it'll be stronger too. See what I mean? So you could fold it, okay? But you do want to be doing the landscape version, not the portrait version, if that makes sense, okay? So I'm assuming we all have some paper laid out this way. Fold just like we've been doing, edge to edge. okay? And again, line those edges up. Don't get a paper cut, just gently stroke it, make sure they're lined up. This is kind of important with an accordion book to have your folds nice and neat, okay? Once you get that, again, press back into the fold and smooth everything out. If you want to grab, I don't know where my bone folder went, so I'm going to use my ruler for now, okay? Just press down. Okay, so you have one crease so far, right? Next step, so I'm holding on to the spine side, the creased side, okay? Take one of these edges, flaps, or whatever you want to call it, and fold it back to the fold. So back to the fold, okay? So your paper's getting smaller, okay? And again, once you've got it folded back to your original fold line it up, run your fingers along there and make sure it's, you know, really as close as you can, and then give that one a fold, okay? So far, I'll just recap quickly. We went from this to this, and then we folded one edge back to the center to our first fold. We've got something that looks like this flapping around. And when we're done with that, if you want, you can turn the whole thing over, okay, and take your last remaining flappy part and fold that back over to the center. And if it's confusing, let me know. It's really, people have their own ways of making accordion folds. This is the way I've figured out that gives, you know, the neatest little, I call it a package, packet, okay? And let me know if you need any help with that. And can everybody, once you have that done, can you just hold up your accordion? Okay, great. Okay, super. Okay. So, and try it out. Make sure that it works like an accordion. You know, the instrument, you know, the kind of old-timey instrument. Make sure that it opens and closes. Every once in a while, we could get mixed up and our folds could be backwards or something, and then you might have to turn something back in the other direction, but usually this works out, okay? So I've got something that looks like this, depending on which side I'm seeing, okay? Now, here's something you can do. Let's just say that I have a long story to tell, and I want it to go on longer than this. So I have another piece of paper just as wide as the one that I started with, and I think I want to add it on. I want to have like a really long book. I have a lot to say, okay? So I'm going to start folding again. Okay, same thing I did before, edge to edge, flip one side back, fold it back to the center. I'll lay this down here for a minute. Okay, and then one more time with this flap, flip it over, and fold it back to where I was. Make sure my edges match, hopefully they do. Get that all together. Give me a minute here. Okay, more or less. Okay, so now I have two of these. What can I do? How do I get them to stick together, right? I have two long pieces. How do I match them up so that they make one long book? There's a couple of ways. If you don't mind sacrificing, I'm going to call these are pages, technically. I'm going to call them panels for now. So if you don't mind letting go or sacrificing one panel, you can take it and put it right on top of the other one. Could you see what I was doing there? So I'm joining them by just attaching one to the other right on the line, and I would apply glue here. I'd put some smooth glue or glue stick here, and I would just put basically two of these together. Now that gives you one piece that is thicker. What some people do is they cut it down. You know, they might cut one piece down and make like just a couple of inches to glue down, that's kind of up to you. But does that make sense so far? Okay, I'm looking, I think I see a couple nods. So again, joining this way where you're covering up one panel and putting another one on top of it, okay? So that involves gluing. I'm not going to do the gluing now, but I might in a minute. Okay, so that's one way. Another thing you can do, I've prepared this. I made it pink so that you could see it, but I would ordinarily use the same color as my paper. I call these like a connector or a hinge. I think you might have seen it in the packet if you looked. So this would be as tall as your paper, right? It's just the same height as your paper, if I can angle that. And it's a couple inches wide, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3, 3 or 4 inches wide, whatever, doesn't matter too much. Strong enough to take a little wear and tear, fold it nicely in half, okay? And then instead of overlapping, that's what I was doing before, instead of this, here's what I'm doing this time. Let's see if I can lay it down where you can actually see it. I am making this the hinge, and I'm going to glue one end of one paper on here. Okay, can you see what I did so far? I'm going to lay one down on one side of that fold of my hinge, glue it, of course, I'm just showing you, and then lay the other side down and glue that. Okay, so I've joined them right on that fold line. See what I'm doing? So your choice. I kind of like this method. So on the back, you've got something that looks like this. Okay, and like I said, usually you wouldn't choose a different color. You would probably choose the same color as your paper, but I kind of like it. And because you have folded this already, you have a fold already made for yourself, okay? So your book is going to fold back and forth, okay? Really, either method works. Okay, so shall I give you a couple minutes to, I don't know who wants to make a very long book, but I just wanted to show you that as an option. And I think that might, Megan, was that you with, did you have the question? Okay, so, all right. All right, so tell me if I should move on a little bit. Yes, okay. I think I saw at least a few nods there. So let's just assume that my folds are all folded, and if I want my paper to be super long, I've got some kind of connecting piece in there. Everything's all stuck together the way I want it to be. Okay, so at this point, let's see, what do I want to do? Move a few things around. Give me just 1 minute. I want to jump on my table here. Okay, so shall I show you about the cover, how to cover a hardcover for an accordion book and how to put it on? Nod your head if you'd like to get a little quick demo on that. Okay, so I'm going to back up. This is just copy paper, regular old printer paper. I did some printmaking exploration on there. So this is like acrylic paint. Somehow it made this paper feel really thick, and it's really just regular old copy paper. But I wanted to use these because I like them. So I have 2 different ones, just designs from a kitchen mat or something, I think. Anyway, talk about that later. Okay, so let me backtrack here. All right, so I'm going to undo my tape here for a moment. You don't need any tape for this, by the way, but you will need glue. Undo this. All right, so here's what I've got. Like I said, I have a piece of cardboard, okay, and then I have a cover paper, an inch larger all the way around, so like a picture frame almost, okay? And what I like to do to make sure that I'm getting everything lined up the way I want it to, I do measure these, and what I do is I put my cardboard, I'm looking for a pencil, but of course, when can you find a pencil when you need one? It vanished. Anyway, pretend I have an imaginary pencil here, and I trace, I actually did it here. Let's see if you can see that. I don't know if you can see my lines, but I actually traced the cardboard. And that's just so that when I go to glue everything together, that it will be lined up the way that I want it to be, okay? So you're gonna end up with something, you know, looks a little bit like that, okay? Now, different people glue in different ways. I prefer to glue not on the board, but I tend to glue on the paper. Why? Because especially if you're using any wet glue, you don't want a lot of wet glue. Even if you just use a little, you don't want it sort of sinking into the board right off the bat. It's going to get on there anyway, of course, but somehow I think you can have like a nice thin layer on your paper without saturating, you know, your board right away. So I don't know if that reasoning makes any sense, but that's how I do it. Okay. So at this point, let me grab my glue. Where did my little Target card go? I think I've got an overload of stuff on my table here. So, oh, here, okay. I have my little glue spreader from Target, my paper. I'm gonna work down here, not on my computer keys. I'm gonna put a little tiny bit of glue in the middle, okay? I'm going right up to the lines that I sketched out, okay? So I have some glue on here, if you can see that. I'm gonna take the edge of my card and use it as a glue spreader. Some people use a paintbrush, but I don't like to mess up my brushes. So I take the edge of my card and I just gently spread my glue nice and evenly. I usually go from the middle to the outside, okay? That'll give you a nice smooth layer, okay? And once you do that, you're all ready with your glue, then you can take your board and look for the lines that you drew to outline where your board should go, and just gently place it back in, okay? And everything should be nice and lined up, hopefully. If I can adjust that just a little. Check on the back. If you did anything, you know, if you see bumps or anything like I do, just gently lift it up. Here's another good time for something like a bone folder or a gentle tool to press out any air bubbles that you might have. I see a few. So I'm going to try to get it smooth. Again, perfection is not my middle name. So there we go. Kind of pull on the paper a little. Okay. So I've got that about as smooth as I can for now. All right. And if I flip it over, I've got something that looks sort of like this. Okay. So the corners. There's two different ways to do these corners. I think I'll show you both ways. Okay. One way is hold on to a corner and carry it down. So here's, I don't know if you can see this, but here's the very, oops, where am I? Here's the point, the very edge of my cardboard, okay? I'm gonna grab this paper and I'm gonna make a little corner. It's gonna take the shape of a, what do you call that? A right triangle, I think? Oh gosh, it's gonna look like that. So it's kind of straight. You can see that. Now I haven't glued this, so when I glue that, it should hold this shape. You're gonna give a little edge there, something like that. Okay, that's one way to do it. I'm gonna do the top two like this, and I'm gonna do the bottom two a slightly different way. Okay, so again, it looks like this. You're just grabbing the edge of your, you know, your decorative cover paper, pulling it down right to the point where your cardboard starts.
Huh?
Question?
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Okay, if you have a question, be sure to let me know. So we've got something that looks like this. Actually, let me glue that. Oops, sorry. Put a little glue on that little triangle of paper. Can you guys still hear me? You can, okay, I felt like my microphone went out or something for a minute, but I think we're good. Okay, so I have something that looks a little bit like this. Again, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side quickly. I made a mess of my glue, but no worries. Okay. Okay, so the top now looks like this. Okay, I'm going to do the bottom slightly different. I'm still going to make a kind of a fold, but I'm going to chop off most of this paper. And there's advantages to both ways. So if you have a scissor handy, if you want, some people, I don't know how I managed to lose my pencil. I'm going to look. Oh, let's see, I think I have another one. Should have a marker here. Okay. So what some people do is they take a ruler, and if you can see what I'm doing, they look at this little point here where the corner of your board is, and they make a diagonal line like this. So you want to, let me draw it and then I'll explain what I just did. Okay, so if you can see that line that I just drew, so it is just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit bigger than the point of the cardboard, just a smidgen, okay? And then they chop it off. So if I chop off one, I can use this same triangle, oops, I can use this and draw the next one to make sure that they are, you know, pretty much the same. Just use it as a template, or you can just do it by eye, whatever you like. Okay, so now, again, what I'm doing is I'm showing you two methods, and they each have some advantages. So this side chopped off, this edge folded and glued, okay? All right, with me on that? Okay, so next thing we do is we're going to proceed to cover our book. I'm going to go with the top one first. I'm just going to fold this down. Okay, smooth it. I'll look on the outside to make sure it's more or less, you know, pretty nice. Not perfect. I'm going to apply just a little glue. Now, more professional bookmakers, and I agree with them, I don't really like wet glue on cardboard. It can warp the cardboard, truthfully. So what some people do if they have, you know, more fancy art supplies is they get double-sided tape. And they might put a row of tape here and here. I've seen people put a really cover their books basically by using double-sided tape, but I don't have any in my cabinet, so old-fashioned glue will work. Okay, so just a little bit of glue, push that down. Okay, and I'm going to leave it for a minute. It looks like that. Okay. Now, if you want to try the other form, where I've chopped off the corners, I'm basically the same idea. I'm just folding this flap, put a little tiny bit of glue, mush it, not too much. Okay, and bring that down. Okay, like that. Okay, and now we're left with these sides. And you'll see that the only real difference is that this gives you a folded edge here. Okay, you have paper in the way. That can be good and bad. Now I managed to make mine, excuse me, more or less match up, if you can see that. It more or less matches what I did the first time. If I measure it, now see this one doesn't. That one, there's like a little gap there. Something went off, no big deal. It's really actually going to get covered anyway. With this bottom form, you don't have that extra paper in the way, this part, but you do have this little teeny tiny thing here. And I've seen people push this in with like the tip of a scissor, you know, this little annoying little corner. We need it, but we also don't want to really see it hanging out. So that makes a more precise edge. And either way, it's going to look like that. Something like that, okay? So you do it whichever way you like best. I'm going to glue mine down. I'm not using my spreader, but that's it. This is when I wish I had gotten a paper towel handy, but anyway. There's my cover, slightly warped. If the warping, if any glue got on things and it really got really warped and you're concerned about that, you could take maybe like a piece of wax paper or like a plastic notebook divider or something, just so the glue doesn't, you know, seep out anywhere, and you could press it under something for a couple of hours or overnight, you know, to keep this flat. Okay, if it bothers you. Okay, so I'm just going to do one cover for now because I want to show you a few more steps. Okay, so oh, I know what I want to show you. Absolutely. Give me 1 second here. So I was going to show you, I'm going to take a little pause. I'm going to show you a mini book I made recently. Now this is constructed slightly differently, but if you can see that, this one was made from calendar page, the back of a calendar, you know, the little, where they give you the little thumbnails of what's inside your calendar. And I liked that. And so I made a book out of it, and I lined the back, and I decided to make covers. But in the process, I wanted to have something to tie it with, right? I wanted something to be able to wrap the book up and close it when I wanted to. And I didn't really finish this. I'm still working on the structure to do that. These are just washers from the hardware store. But anyway, I'm showing you that because I didn't want to forget that we can definitely create a ribbon closure. Like if you want to fold your accordion book up eventually, here's how I originally learned how to do it. Not like this, because this was a little more complicated, but I'm going to show you. If you don't have ribbon, I don't even know if, I don't think I mentioned it in the packet, and I apologize. So I'm going to put this up here. So what I would do, you want to see, this cover is unglued, so I'll just put it there for now. You want to see how wide your book will be from cover to cover, okay? 2 of them together. And then you would want to take some kind of, you know, cord or ribbon. Ideally, it's flat, not too round and bumpy, not too, you know, bulging. And measure, I like to go with about 4 lengths. So again, the 2 covers side by side measure about approximately, you know, 4 lengths. 1, 2, 3. Oops, I'm gonna run out there. And I'm going to grab my pinking shears because I don't like my ribbon to be too frayed. So there I have it. Might be too much. Okay, so what do? I'm actually only going to apply the ribbon to 1 cover, and I'm going to choose the back cover. I'm not really going to do this. I'm going to just show you. Find the midpoint. Okay, just fold it in half. Figure out where the middle is. Okay. You can fold it or whatever you want to do. I can fold that a little, okay? And if you really want to be precise and you want to measure, you could find the middle of your book with a ruler. But basically, you're going to get the middle of the ribbon in the middle of your book. And you're going to lay it flat, and then you're going to glue it in. You're going to glue the ribbon right in to your back cover. Okay, so there's a lot of ways you can do this, but this is a way that I really like because it gives you lots of room. Okay, so let's just say I have glue here. Actually, I'm going to tape mine in. I don't want to glue this because I'm sort of changing my mind about this book as I go along. So I'm going to tape it for now. Okay, all right, so let's just say I have glued this, something like that. There's a lot of ribbon on each end. Now, we're going to pick up our accordion that we started with, our folded up paper, okay? And you're going to choose one end, okay? So I hope I'm explaining this well. Stop me if you have any questions. And what's going to happen when you make an accordion book with a cover, the last flap or the last whatever I called it, I can't remember, the last, you know, page on each end is going to cover your inner cover. See what I'm doing? it's going to actually just go right over it. And the fold is going to more or less line up with the edge of your book. Okay, can you see, everybody see what I'm doing? Now I haven't fixed this all together, but it's going to end up looking something like that when you're done. Okay, so again, you have ribbon in both directions. You have one paper from your accordion that goes right over the ribbon. It goes over all these edges of paper that you folded. That's why we almost fit the accordion pages to the cover, okay? We want it to be a pretty close fit. You can leave a little teeny tiny bit on the edge, you know, just for folding, that's fine. But I measured mine pretty closely, and it's again gonna look sort of like that, okay? So I'm gonna, I think I'm all glued up here. See if I can grab a clip without knocking things over here. I'm gonna just hold mine together for a minute. If I can do that. Okay, so I don't have to have it jumping away from me. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of freeze mine in action right there. We've got something like that. And now you guessed it. Let's just say I just have this one little bit. I don't have a very long book. The other end of my accordion book is going to cover this end of my cover. And please tell me if that makes sense to you. You can nod if that makes sense. So again, just right on top of what you glued, right there. And so the effect of that is a book that has a cover on each end. You've given up these first and last pages, but you can still write on them, or you could put it like a dedication page or artwork, whatever you like, okay? And when you fold it up, you have ribbon that is coming from the back. I got clipped there. You have ribbon that is coming from inside the back cover, and when you're ready, you can take that. Now I actually have too much ribbon. It's a lot. But when I'm ready to, I could just loop this around. I could loop it a couple of times. I could make a fancy bow, whatever I want. But the point is that all of these pieces will now hold together and can be tied, okay? Everybody with me still? Not? Okay, good, that's good, okay. Nobody getting too weary of bookmaking yet? We've been at this a while now, right? All right, so shall I give you a couple minutes to do any assembly that you're doing, or you want to keep moving on? Questions? Okay, time for a sip of water. All right. So what did I want to do here? I'm going to do just a tiny bit of show and tell while I'm waiting for a few of you to catch up. So we had an actual in-person workshop at the Monterey Public Library last fall. The theme was gratitude. It was kind of around the time of Thanksgiving. And so this was a sampler that I made. And I just want to show you, I don't even know if I can get it in. There's so much of this book, but if you stand it up, I don't think there's anywhere.
It's hard to see the book.
That's what I thought. It's too big. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to show you.
Can you tilt your camera on your computer a little bit?
Yeah, let me try that. There I am. I'm still here. Good point. I forget what to do with the camera. So it goes on quite a ways, but it's a long, long book. But just to say that your book doesn't always have to be, you know, square or rectangular pages. The pages can have form. Okay. This book was, as you can see, it has all kinds of jazzy, you know, stuff. I put in some fancy, let me turn it. It never got finished on the back, and I kind of wanted it that way. I confess that I made this book with duct tape hinges. I did not even glue. I don't think I ever glued real hinges on. I stuck it together with duct tape. And this is fancy, like, I don't know what you call this paper, I forget. But anyway, it's see-through paper, transparent paper with a color to it. And I just taped that in. It's got a million bells and whistles, but I wanted to show you basically to say that the book doesn't have to be a traditional, you know, square book. I showed you one, I showed you the mini, and I showed you this one. So I just wanted to show you kind of a range of things that you can do with them. And now, pardon me, I'm going to show you one more trick. I'm moving away from the actual book. So I go back down to my camera view. Is that better? I don't know if you can see me here, but anyway, what I'm going to do now is just show you, let's say you have your book, it's, you know, assembled, but you want to put a pop-up in there. How cool is that? I love pop-ups. I'm going to grab any fold, okay? If I had a really long book, I could take a fold in the middle. It doesn't really matter, but I'll just take this one. If you want to do this, let me go back down to camera view. Let's see, here we go. How does that work? Is that good? Yeah, okay. So here is, find the fold. Here's the fold, okay? So you always want to make a pop-up on the folded edge. This is the very simplest pop-up that you can imagine. A ruler can be good, but not needed. Make two parallel lines, train tracks, whatever you want. They can be far apart or close together, depending on how wide you want your pop-up. I'm going to make mine fairly wide apart, okay? Excuse me. Losing my voice here. Okay, so I don't think those came out very straight. I'm going to try again. Ooh, there, that's a little better. Okay, well, I kind of messed up my lines, but anyway, you can see they're sort of parallel lines. I'm not bothering to make them in a particular way. I just want to show you. So all you need to know about this is that you are going to keep your paper folded, start your cutting from the fold, okay? So your paper is folded up, paper is folded, start your cutting from the fold, go in, but do not go to the very end. And don't cut anything off. So you're just cutting parallel lines. That's all you're doing for now, okay? And that looks like this, okay? So I'm within the page, okay? Once I do that, okay, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see these lines, okay? And now my accordion is here. I've got something that looks like this. Now take this fold and push it up. You're kind of folding it back. Oh, I missed a step, so sorry. Apologies. One more thing to do. Take your little parallel area that you cut from and fold it back. That's why we don't go all the way to the edge, just fold it back. It's going to look a little like that, okay? And you might want to fold it in both directions. So fold it one way, flip it, fold it the other way, okay? Now again, this is just the most basic pop-up you can do. And I am not an expert on pop-ups, but so now I've got my folds in order, and now I'm gonna push my pop-up area through, okay? And I'm gonna refold here, okay? So what effectively happens is that I now have, how do I do that? Let me angle us back up here, okay. So I effectively now have a little box here, okay? You can see that. And it's still a part of my book. It's still, it's actually between two pages. I made a pretty big one, but there's a billion ways to do this. You can cut pop-ups within pop-ups. The sky is the limit. Look up pop-ups online, how to make a simple, paper pop-up. You'll be astounded at what people do with these simple folding procedures. Like I think you can let me just experiment for 1 minute. No lines drawn. I'm just going to do 2 more parallel lines. Okay, so I have my first pop-up, right? And now within this thing that I folded back and forth, I'm cutting again. 2 more parallel lines. I didn't do a good job with that, but same idea. Okay, back and forth. And now I can have a pop-up within a pop-up. How cool is that? So you can have 2 directions, or I'm not sure. I've got to experiment, you know. The sky is kind of the limit with these. When you start playing with it, I don't think I described that last one too well, but they do work and they are really interesting and fun, okay? And a lot of book artists use the form of the accordion book to experiment with pop-up pages because, again, you have all these folds going on, okay? So anybody have questions about that? Questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So you made the pop-up on the, like on the end fold. So would you still glue that onto your cover page?
So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it on the very last one. That's a great question. I hadn't even thought of that. So I might even assume that I've already constructed my book. Like, let's just say I really do want a hardcover and I've got my book kind of put together and I've got, so this is gonna eventually, if you haven't done it yet, this is gonna be glued down here. So if you put a pop-up right here on this very first one, it's kind of going to interfere with that structure. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So you probably don't want, if you're planning to use a hardcover, you probably don't want to put it right on the end. That's a good point. Thank you for, because I hadn't even thought of that, how that would work. But like, let's just say you have a long accordion and you have plenty of room in the middle. Yeah, pick something in the middle. Look in the packet. There's a picture, whatever page, I forget, maybe page 6 or something, I don't know. But it has a picture of an artist who did a really cool, it's simple actually, but it's a pop-up structure within an accordion book. And, you know, you'll get ideas. Try it on scrap paper. That's what I recommend. Just, you know, play around with it and see where it takes you. Okay. So.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sure, no problem. Okay, so who has the endurance for one more book form? Does anybody want to go the whole distance? I don't know, Francesca, are you still online? Structure, and this is something, this is kind of new ideas for me. So I can't say that I'm the best to teach this, but I'm going to try. I'll do it my own way. Is something that I've read about being called as like a junk journal, a treasure journal. I ended up calling this particular one a mixed media album. I think that's what I called it. If you saw it in the packet, that's how I referred to it. Why did I call it an album? Because every one of these that I have experimented with, I have made from a Trader Joe's box that looks like an album. That's how I got the brilliant idea. I'm sure this is not an original idea, but I just look at these boxes and I go, wow, why do I have to cut the whole thing apart with a separate spine and all this stuff? Here's a built-in spine for me. And I get to recycle a box. So it's a win-win, right? So I started playing around with this form and I really like it. I can't say that I've really mastered it, but there is no mastery. It's all just see where it takes you, okay? So having said that, I want to show you, I'm going to start out by showing you my first creation with a humble Trader Joe's box, and it transformed into this. So what I did was I took not a cracker box, but it was a different kind of box, and some organization periodically sends me these cloth shopping bags in the mail. It's like a promotion. I flipped the bag inside out so that the print wasn't showing. And I used that recycled cloth bag to cover my box. And I dipped into my, I'm going to undo this fancy stuff here. Let's see if I can do it without breaking anything. May take a moment. Yeah, here we go. I rigged this one up. So if you look on the inside, I lined the inside of the book. Now I'm a teacher and, you know, I have like a whole closet full of, I'm a paper lover. So I had all this cool paper and I'm like, why not use what I have? So this is lined with beautiful art paper, but you don't have to have fancy paper. You can make your own. That's the joy of it. If you look in the back of the packet that I made, there's a lot of links. You could do bubble prints. You could do, this is probably like a kind of marbling process. You know, you could stamp things. Anyway, I won't even go into that yet, but I just wanted to show you that this started out as a humble box. And this is a portion, like a design from handmade paper, more paper. This was dollar store, you know, contact paper that was all sparkly. This is vellum paper, which you can put through your printer. I love vellum. I am in love with it. You can like print your stuff on it. I threw in my photography. There's collage. There is yarn. There's photos. I'm going to skip to the back. The album is cool because if you have a good sized spine like this one, you have lots of room to put things with dimension. So like this is a poem I wrote a long time ago. I glued in, you know, some little sparkly things, kind of goes with the theme of the poem. I made, this is like a, you know, a photo page. So I made a little frame for it. So it invites exploration. That's why I'm just so like totally enchanted with this form. And then to the end, again, I don't know if you can see it, but all these things pop up off the page. Now you could not do that with a pamphlet. Like Kara, I think you were asking me before about, you know, could you put a spine on one of those pamphlet books? It would be hard, but with this structure, yes, you definitely can. And you've got ample room. You have to play with it a little bit. It needs some, you know, tender loving care to assemble it and get the size of the pages right. So I'm going to show you one more thing on that, and then I'm going to talk about construction. So I was going crazy with how do I get my pages to do what I want them to do. So one way I figured it out was to go in from the side, okay? And what I want to mention here before I go further is that here's another Trader Joe's box. Okay, so I'll show you this in a minute, but see, this is kind of flimsy. That's not a good example. But anyway, I'll just say the spine area of a Trader Joe's box, for example, it's not really that strong when you know, undo your box. So what I did, hold on. Prepared. So proud of myself. Here's the box, right? Shall I cut down a box with you? Let's see if I can find a scissor. I don't know where anything is at this point. Here's my scissor. Things are going to start falling about this point. Let's move that. So here's my box, right? Leave one side on. Okay, that's going to be your spine. I'm just going to dive right in. And if you happen to have a box, you can do the same thing. Okay, I'm not doing my best cutting here. I'm just going to be a little messy. But basically, you want to cut these flappy things off. Okay, cut them off. Keep cutting. Cut all these extra flaps on, but don't throw the cardboard away. Keep it, because you can use it. Okay, so now I've got down to that. I think I already chopped off the top. So I'm going to leave this as my spine, one side, and I'm going to remove the other. Okay, and I am not going to discard it. I am absolutely going to use it. Sometimes you can pull these boxes apart. They have like a glued seam, depending on, you know, how the box was assembled. I'm slicing it down. Again, now I can go to the inside and see where the cutting line is a little better. See if I can do that more or less. Okay, now I did a really bad cutting job, but anyway, my book is now open, okay? And one side again is an intact spine. I'm gonna just go right back in and use the scrap that I cut off one end to reinforce the other, boom. And if I cut nicely, it's already pretty much cut to fit, okay? You need the strength for the spine because it takes a lot of wear and tear, especially with this book where you have so much stuff, you know, going in and out. So let's assume that I have glued a reinforcement for my spine, okay? So one thing you can do that I discovered is to go in the side, let me see. Yeah, I think this was my first experiment. I went in the side and I love paper fasteners. Just give me a nod if you like, if you have or like paper fasteners. I love them. I don't know where my stash of stuff is. Wait. Hang on 1 second. At this point in the day, I think I'm probably, you know, going to start misplacing things. So I can't find my loose paper fasteners, but if I had them, they would be here anyway. They look like this. If you're not familiar with them, take one apart. They come in different sizes. Probably seen them in a package somewhere. There's a little mini. They come in large and small sizes. They don't cost a lot and they're really handy. So in this case, I punched holes in the spine of the book, okay? And then I made a little folding area. I don't know if you can see that, but I folded my papers. This was an experiment. So I just took scrap paper with stuff written on it. No big deal, nothing to lose. And I folded this whole packet back and forth. So it's got like a little folding hinge, okay? And that helps it line up. Now, originally, I had the paper way out here. I'm like, oh, I can use paper as long as my cover. But no, when you fold this over, that paper travels. See what I mean? This paper travels. And so I feel like I have a lot to go to improve this structure and get it just the way that I want it. But that's where I started. And I'm going to show you a few more experiments. So this one, I also went in through the side. No paper fasteners. I had these big, you know, buttons. I teach kids, so I've got these, you know, big kid-sized buttons. These all have 2 holes, which is handy. So I just did like a stitch, you know, a little stitch through the button. Same basic idea. I punched holes in the spine, just 1 hole, even though there are 2 holes in the button. I just punched 1 hole and I took that right through and I made almost like my own paper fastener. And this is just a pipe cleaner, a little piece of a pipe cleaner. So let me undo it for you, show you what I mean. Deconstruct the construction here. I can wiggle it loose. Well, okay, it's not going to come loose because I might have glued something. But anyway, if you can see that 1 hole, okay, and the pipe cleaner went around in a little loop through the holes of the button, came out this side, and of course I had to punch holes. Now in this case, this creation here is more like what I have seen for when you look up junk journal. If you look up, some of them are super fancy. They don't really look like junk to me. They look like store-bought. But anyway, I wanted a real authentic junk journal. So I tore the edges of my paper. That's pretty junky. Here's some more corrugated cardboard. There's an example where, you know, you can peel this first layer off and expose this cool corrugation, these ridges. Guess what this is? You get a prize if you know what this is. No guesses? Okay, so this is a panel from a Trader Joe's bag. It's just, you were gonna get, okay, you get the prize anyway. Yeah, I'm like, why can't it be a surface, right? I mean, even if I can't draw on it, maybe I could with a permanent marker. I could glue stuff on it. It's junk. It's a junk journal. People put all kinds of stuff in these things. I have seen some really intense junky things in there. I like Trader Joe's. I think they have phenomenal artists, so I included some of their artwork in there. Where did my tray go? Gosh, give me 1 minute. I'm looking for something that I need here. So I'm going to go back and forth in talking for just a minute. I want to show you one more binding method that I developed. As soon as I find it. Yeah, here it is. Okay. A little crazy here. Okay, so let me get this out of the way. All right, there we go. Get the Legos out of the way for a minute. Tell you about them in a minute. Okay, so here's one more example. You can see we eat a lot of crackers. Blame my husband for that. Okay, so same basic kind of box, right? But you don't see anything on the side, right? Like, how do you hook up this book without punching in from the spine? What's an alternate method? So I started thinking about, well, how do they do that when you have, you know, the back to school folders that have the little, I don't know if you know what I mean, but they have like a little structure. And I'm like, there has to be a way to kind of sort of recreate that. Now, I didn't make it perfectly. I think the back to school folders have another layer of paper here, or cardstock, whatever they use, but I went with one and it worked just fine. And I'll show you how I did that. And this is a good segue into back to the accordion, okay? I made an accordion fold, okay? And here's how I did it. And if you don't remember all this and you want to know later on, I can, you know, we can talk again, but I just basically took a piece of cardstock, okay, folded it in half, like we did before for our accordion book, fold it in half, fold one edge back, fold the other edge back, okay? So now I have this little fan-shaped thing, and I'm going to flip it. These surfaces here on each side are going to be what I use to apply glue to the spine of my book, and that's exactly what I did. So here is the undone one. Now this is a little too wide, but I'll just show you the basic idea. I would trim it down, of course, to fit the spine, but I would put glue here, and I would just glue it down. Voila. And then I would punch holes through here, punch, 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 however many you want. Put my paper fasteners through, or whatever method you choose, okay? And then line my paper up the same way, match the holes, punch holes again. That makes sense, sort of? Thumbs up if it makes sort of like sense, okay? I know I'm giving you like multiple pieces of information. I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but like I said, I can always talk you through it at a, you know, a slower pace. But that's basically what I did. This one, if you look a little more closely, so on one end you have the finished side of the paper fastener. What I didn't get to is, what do you do about the back? You don't really want these poking out. So what I like about them being open like this is that you can always remove and add, you know, you can remove old paper and add in new paper. So if they're loose and flexible, you can do that. Once you start like gluing them down, making them all pretty, they're not as flexible, if you see what I mean. So you can choose how you want to do that. I'll show you, where did it go? Let's see if I can find something in my junk pile here.
Ellen, excuse me, I just want to interrupt to say thank you so much. It was lovely to attend, and I had a great time, and I have a women's group I'm going to leave and
Okay.
start with.
So started as a humble cardboard box, and I covered this one with fabric. So that's another alternative. You can use, if you have scrap fabric or some clothing that you're recycling, and you don't want anything too porous, nothing with like very open, like my sweater with all these holes and weave and stuff. The glue would kind of come through there unless you had like double-sided tape or something. But for you know, pretty solid fabric, works like a charm, and it really makes a nice cover. Okay. If you're still with me for 1 or 2 more minutes, I'll just show you some random stuff, and then, you know, we'll probably say goodbye for the day. But I want to just show you some odds and ends. And again, if you look through the packet, this is, you know, I don't know who among us recycles. I recycle everything pretty much when I'm doing art. So I scavenge stuff from envelopes. That's like a little, you know, when you get an envelope in the mail that has the little mailing window, they're awesome. You can glue around the paper. You can put your own photo or drawing, whatever you like. So that's one thing. Kleenex boxes, you know, facial tissue boxes have really nice patterns and designs, and they can be used in artwork. They're good for framing. Okay. That's a squared off or cube facial tissue box. So you can see the potential. Strength in numbers, I like that. You might be seeing it backwards, but again, magazine clippings, you know, words that you like that are inspiring. This is a badge holder from you know, you go to a conference or meeting or something, and they have built-in holes. So this is good for, you know, again, our paper fasteners or some other kind of way to clip, or, you know, I don't recommend putting glue on these, but I want to share another favorite material, glue dots. Love these things. I got these at CVS. $2.99. This box will probably last me 10 years. They're good for so many things. They come in different sizes and thicknesses, and for something that is clear, you don't want to see a lot of wet glue or anything poking through. They're just a circle. Basically, they look like that. And they show you the size on the box. Okay, great multi-purpose item. This is, if anybody still uses these anymore, a CD case. I don't know where the end is. I can't, there we go. So, you know, again, you could cut a photo or your artwork, a mandala, something, and you could have a little mini book on a cover of a book or inside of an album. Okay, so lots of potential there. I found this playing card at CVS a long time. I like transparent things, so that's something cool. When I'm framing things, this is from a spice, you know, container. It's just a little clear lid. What else do I have in my grab bag? Oh, this is cool. I invented this cool. I thought it was cool. I thought these things were just so graceful. You think I'm crazy, right? But this is a tooth cleaner. And I like it. I like the shape of it. I was thinking of painting over it. I use nail polish sometimes to paint over things, but I kind of like the humor of it. And I put, this is from a Kleenex box, this little insert. This is scrap cardboard, Kleenex box, a gum cleaner, whatever you call it, and a bead, and a pipe cleaner, and voila. And I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but you could like wrap something around this and make a loop. You know what I mean? You can, the sky's the limit. This cool tape, this is washi tape. Some people who are crafty love this stuff. It's not super, super sticky, but it comes in really nice patterns. Okay, here's one of those buttons I mentioned, a big button with 2 holes. So I'm just showing you random junk that I use. And this is from an olive oil cap from an olive oil bottle. You could rig some kind of a closure or a button or something from that going through the center. I like to use washers from the hardware store. I go to the hardware store routinely and I just go in there. They probably think I'm crazy, but I try out random stuff. This one doesn't work, but anyway, you can see the potential there. I'm looking for one. Anyway, you get the idea, the big idea. Oh, here it is. So let me just show you. Originally, I was going to close a book like this with a washer and a paper fastener, and I think it looks really like a finished, neat kind of little closure, okay? And then you can glue this from the bottom. I tend, when I'm going to glue something like metal, I tend to use tacky glue. Elmer's just isn't really strong enough for everything, okay? Tacky glue, I got this at Ace Hardware. This bottle was $2.49. again, this will last me a year or two probably. So you don't have to, break the bank. Tape like this comes in handy for bookmaking. This is like a heavy mailing tape. What else do I have in my goodie bag here? Oh, I'm not gonna talk your ear off about art too much, but I was doing printmaking with some kids that I was teaching, and I didn't have any Legos at home. My kids are grown up, so no more Legos, but I see a kid on my screen right now. So if you have Legos at home, these are really cool for printmaking. You can dip these in paint or ink if you have a little ink pad at home, and these make the coolest stampers. So ordinary stuff. Here's another Lego. This one's more like a wheel. Just imagine a whole book cover stamped with all these amazing patterns and shapes and stuff like that. So, pardon me, I think you get the idea. I have talked your ear off today. Anybody have any, I'll turn my camera back up so I can actually see you guys. Anybody have any questions, comments, anything?